My family is from Roseau River First Nation. Original lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, the homeland of the Red River Métis, and home to many Inuit. I want to thank you all for being here today, the survivors, the elders, the knowledge keepers, for providing opening words, the drum song, water and pipe ceremony, Elders Philip and Florence Painter, Harry Bone, Coco, miigwech to each one of you for bringing the lodge here to this place. Also, I'd like to acknowledge all the chiefs and leadership, dignitaries here today, and each one of you that have joined us. For those of you who are not familiar with the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation, I would like to briefly share a few words about our work. The NCTR is born from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. We were created to be the respectful stewards of all the statements, documents, and sacred items gathered by the TRC. We were also mandated to continue the TRC's work of research, education, and community engagement. We are very pleased to be entering into this collaboration with the Manitoba Vital Statistics Branch, TRC Call to Action 71, called upon provincial and statistics agencies that had not provided their records on the deaths of Indigenous children in the care of residential school authorities to make the documents available to the NCTR. It is going on 8 years since the end of the TRC mandate, and today this Memorandum of Agreement is an important contribution to all ongoing efforts to find all of our children. Through this agreement, the NCTR will be able to access information in death certificates held by the province of Manitoba. This information will help families and the NCTR to fill in some of the gaps that currently stop us from finding out further truth about residential school children who did not return from home and are in unmarked burials. For example, where we have the name of a student who attended a particular school, but we have no information on when or how they died, or where they were buried, we may now be able to add that crucial information to the historical record. We don't expect that the Manitoba Vital Statistics Branch will have information on all the students whose lives we are researching. However, each new piece of information that we gain matters. Colonial records, along with parents and community information, helps to complete the narratives about what happened to the children who did not make it home to their loved ones. The families and communities have a right to know about the children that did not return from school and know where their little ones lay buried. Miigwech.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. I'm now honored, very, very honored to introduce the Minister Northern Tights Bay. Thank you very much for coming with us. Northern, please come and speak to us now.
Good morning. I'm truly honored to be here today with all of you. I want to begin by acknowledging that we are gathered on Treaty 1 territory and that Manitoba is located on the treaty territories and ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Anishinaabe, Dakota Oyate, Dene Sulihane, and Nahothawak nations. Let's acknowledge that Manitoba is the homeland of the Red River Métis, and we acknowledge that northern Manitoba includes lands that were and are the ancestral lands of the Inuit. respect the spirit and intent of treaties and treaty making, and remain committed to working in partnership with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples in a spirit of truth, reconciliation, and collaboration. I also want to say thank you to Elder Harry Bone for the opening remarks and for welcoming me and giving me the opportunity to participate in this ceremony. We had met just a few weeks ago in my office, and happy to be back here with you again today. I want to say thank you to Coco for the singing and for setting the tone here today, and especially thanks to Elder Florence and Elder Philip for the water and the pipe ceremony. Thank you for bringing the gravity that we need for this ceremony and making sure that we recognize how important it is. I believe that trust starts and ends with truth, and it's my hope that we are building trust today and that we are doing so by exchanging truth. Today is an important step in reconciling with the past wrongs that occurred in this province. When residential schools were established over 130 years ago, they were not established on a foundation of truth. We acknowledge that now. The agreement that we are signing today lays the legal foundation on which we can build a relationship based on trust and based on respect. I also want to say welcome and thank you to the Grand Chiefs and the Chiefs who are here today with me. I see Chief Kathy Merrick. It was a pleasure meeting with you also in your office a few weeks ago. Thank you. Chief Blue Sky, it is good to see you again as well. Garrison Setti, Grand Chief Garrison Setti, it is good to see you as well. I appreciate the conversations that we've had. And I apologize if I haven't introduced myself to the other elders, but I will do so, and chiefs, I will do so after the ceremony. The National Center for Truth and Reconciliation is a center for education and for research on the legacy of residential schools. The center holds collections and records that survivors have entrusted them with. And the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation has been generous in sharing their knowledge and expertise in the process of developing this information sharing agreement. Now, I'm the minister responsible for the Vital Statistics branch of government, and the Vital Statistics branch is responsible for maintaining a registry dating back to 1882 of births, marriages, and deaths, as well as other life events in Manitoba. And the Vital Statistics branch is the sole custodians of these records. So similar to our National Center for Truth and Reconciliation partner, we have a unique set of records from other sources as well. So this agreement that we're signing today provides for an exchange of information with the goal of identifying children who died at their residential schools or who died shortly after having left their residential schools. Although today is somewhat of a celebration of mutual trust and collaboration, we cannot lose sight of the harsh reality of the information that is being shared. It is a grim and sobering reminder of the generational impact that residential schools have had on our province and on our nation. Because of the sensitivity of this work, the staff from the National Center of Truth and Reconciliation and Vital Statistics have worked hard to ensure that the data that they do transfer will be done in a secure manner. I'm very pleased to be the minister who is taking this across the finish line, but I also want to acknowledge that there were many others before me and with me who have achieved this. I want to especially acknowledge the Minister for Indigenous Relations and Northern Affairs, Eileen Clark, who is with us today. She has been a mentor to me in ways that she perhaps does not understand fully, but I certainly very much appreciate your presence here today. I think it's entirely appropriate, and I see a number of my other MLA colleagues as well who've encouraged me in this work and have encouraged me to build a respectful relationship with our Indigenous partners across this province. So today, we are taking the first steps in implementing Truth and Reconciliation Commission's Call to Action number 71. And it's our hope that the sharing of this information will bring closure to families, will help with healing for the families and communities of children who died as a result of the residential school system. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, for your kind words and encouraging words about our future and reconciliation of our people. So with that, thank you very much on speaking on behalf of the government and welcoming us. Now I have another great honor to introduce Chief Gordon Bluesky to officially welcome us to this territory. I think it's always important to follow our protocols. So Chief Bluesky.
Bonjour. Wasigijik Dijan Kaz Makanakto Dam, Paskanda Be Wizibing Unji. I'd like to just say, thank you for the invite and Miigwech for the opening prayer, the drums, and the water ceremony as well. I really do appreciate that. I'd like to acknowledge all the leadership here, ministers in attendance. I had an opportunity to tour the Kamloops Indian Residential School last week. I was there for a meeting with the First Nations Tax Commission, and they took us through a tour of the site where the 215 that kind of started the whole discussion. Unfortunately, the discussion again on the children that were not only that had to attend these schools, but were also found buried at these schools. But also the story that I heard on the tour was that the children that were also lost at these schools that were never found. When I was doing the tour with the community, one of the guides took us downstairs and he said, this is where the children were taken and were separated, males and females. And he said in some cases the children never saw each other again, and they were brothers and sisters. That really struck with me because I have 3 sisters. I myself, as a 60 Scoop survivor, was fortunate enough to where I was adopted to Pennsylvania, to America with my sisters, and I ended up growing up with them throughout that time. It was a tough time, and I don't want to get into all that, but it was the stories that you hear about these children that went to these residential schools. And that really stuck with me because when we started to tour the facility, they took us upstairs to where they housed the 3 to 6-year-old children. And of course, this morning, on the way here, knowing what we were going to be talking about here today, I gave my baby and my other babies an extra big hug today because of those children that I could feel when I was walking through that. And I believe the work that we're doing today in terms of the truth and reconciliation, the truth is that we're spiritual people. And that spiritual relationship that we have with those children that are now our ancestors are still powering the movement that we're doing right now. And it's really important for us to understand that spirits need to transition. And when I walked through those halls, I felt those little ones, and I felt the sadness. And we also heard the stories of those young boys that would have to go and dig those holes. They were given treats to go and do that, thinking that they were planting apple trees that were supposed to go into that orchard. And another story I heard was one of those kids held back and snuck out there at night to watch what they were doing and saw what the priests were putting into the ground. It was another child. And to me, it's another part that really sticks to me because of the importance of not only the truth, but the reconciliation part of this is a shameful part and an unfortunate part of Canadian history. And I'm just glad to be here to be a part of some of that reconciliation, the work that needs to happen to give these families and to give these poor souls rest as they transition to the other side. And I acknowledge them today. Kichi Miigwech. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief Wolski. I think it's always great and important to hear from our great leaders, young leaders, and up and coming. Our hope is in your hands, Chief. I'm now grateful and privileged and honored to introduce our Grand Chief. It's always a privilege for me to introduce such a great leader. So, Grand Chief, you want to speak to us for a few minutes? Sorry, I didn't say.
Gusani Tanzi, Bonjour, Anin. On behalf of the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, I want to acknowledge that we are gathered on Treaty 1 territory and that the region Manitoba is located is on the unceded treaty territories and ancestral lands of our people. I want to give thanks to Creator for today, for bringing us together for such an important announcement for our people. I want to say thank you to Elder Harry Bone for all the work that you do on behalf of our people, and for the greetings and the prayers today, this morning, the pipe ceremony, and the importance of the water ceremony to bring balance to our work, to bring balance to who we are, and that we gather our ancestors today. I want to thank Raymond Coco Stevenson for those beautiful songs that echoed in this building, and why, for that purpose today, to be able to hear that, and for our ancestors to be able to listen to those beautiful songs. I also want to recognize the Métis and the Inuit leadership this morning. I want to acknowledge the officials in the room today, Mr. James Teitzma, thank you, and Minister Eileen Clark. It's always a pleasure. I also wish to acknowledge the staff from the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation, including their Executive Director, Stephanie Scott. Thank you for inviting me to bring greetings and congratulations on behalf of the 62 First Nations in Manitoba. We thank you. My office met with Minister Teitzma just a few weeks ago, where he informed us of this transfer agreement between the Department of Manitoba Vital Statistics and the NCTR with respect to releasing information and records of importance to residential school survivors. I was pleased to hear the government of Manitoba was taking this step to ensuring these records are made available to survivors in a manner consistent with the spirit and intent of both the TRC calls to action and the work of the TRC. This transfer agreement with the province will now allow survivors to access even more information as their partnership follows the agreement with Canada in 2022 to hand over more records on residential schools that Ottawa has been holding back. It's a historic day today for our people, to give hope to our people that have been seeking for that closure for their ancestors and for themselves and for our children as well. It is through these records that survivors and families can uncover more truths about their relatives and their communities. We just heard Chief Blue Sky talk about the residential school, and we had numerous residential schools in the province of Manitoba, including where I originate from, Cross Lake. I know too many of our First Nation people who have been denied access to settlement agreements because of this very purpose, that they were not able to prove, that they were not able to provide that information that was needed. They were denied compensation and denied status registration because of the lack of access of information. So I hope in saying all this that our people will be given that opportunity to seek and to be able to be assisted in getting all their information in this process. This is very important in that the records that will be handed over will be a way to get at the truth, the real truth as to what happened to our people, what happened to our people in residential schools, their families, the parents, and perhaps may even shed light on the Western names forced upon our First Nation children. And that information is critical to our survivors. The names of the children were changed in residential schools, and they were not able to create that connection back to their communities, their First Nations. They were given Western names and did away with our original names that we had in our schools, in our ways. That is why it's so important that we hold and protect that information, and the NCTR was chosen to do just that. You have a lot of work to do, and you have done a lot of work to now, and we really do appreciate that. To create as complete as possible history of the residential school system in one collection, in one space. So we're very proud that we're able to be present and to be able to participate in this historic event. Having access to both provincial and federal documents will allow First Nations to document these children's lives that attended residential schools. They need to be talked about. Their names need to be talked about. Their families, their mothers, their fathers need to be talked about, because they never had that in the residential schools. They were numbers. They were numbers to the governments. So it's today, again, we will talk about them. So with that, I want to say congratulations to the province and the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation on negotiating and formalizing this transfer agreement today. So with that, I don't know who's talking loud here while I'm talking. So with that, I would like to thank you for being able to listen and being able to witness such a historic event. And we will move forward. And thank you to the Minister's presence, the Grand Chiefs. Gidanasco mitnawa.
Your leadership is so much appreciated, leadership that we need so much for all of us as elders and all our leaders and, of course, our children. So thank you very much for being present here today for this very important event. I'm now also honored, very honored to introduce the Grand Chief from the North, Seti. So I think it's important to have him also speak as well. So, Grand Chief. Good.
Miigwech, Elder Bone. I want to begin by thanking the Chief of Treaty 1 Territory for allowing us to convene and partake this very important ceremony, and I'm really honored to be part of a very historic day that began with the pipe ceremony by our elder Philip Painter and my friend for the water ceremony. Thank you, Florence, for opening this up in a way that is so critical that we have this ceremony, because this is a very sacred undertaking for our people. It is historical to try to unravel a lot of the history that is so dark and so painful, and also for families that need to find closure, for many unanswered questions can be answered when we work together. And I want to commend Minister Teitzma for this initiative. It's very important that you join us on this journey towards reconciliation. And also, Minister Eileen Clark has been very helpful for our nations to be able to find truth. It is also very difficult to listen to the truth. But like we've said many times, without truth, you cannot find true reconciliation. It has to happen. So this partnership is a response to the calls to action that were issued 8 years ago. And the calls to action number 71, something that needed to happen, and it's long overdue. But today is the day when we embark on a journey where our nations will be able to find answers for children that died in Indian residential schools and also in sanatoriums. There have been no records for our people to access, but I know that our people have the right to find information when it comes to our people. Our nations need to know these records have to be accessible to them, because we're building and rebuilding our nations because they have been damaged, they've been shattered. But this is part of a journey where we build our nations, when we will be stronger nations when we find closure for the people that are still suffering and don't know what happened. So this is very important to us, and on behalf of the 26 chiefs that I represent, I want to thank everyone from the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation for not stopping to try to find those answers and also trying to find ways to move reconciliation forward. And today is very historic, and I'm thankful that it is happening, but let's not stop here. This is only the beginning. True reconciliation can happen when we work together. Egusanik, in anaskumit now. Hi.
Jimmy Gwetch, thank you very much, Grand Chief Seti, for your kind words and encouraging words and strong words. Thank you very much. Finally, I want to introduce Scott Harper for Island Lake area to come and share a few words with us. Scott Harper, Grand Chief.
Good morning. Scott Harper, good morning, everyone. My name is Grand Chief Scott Harper. I come from the community of Red Sucker Lake First Nation, and I represent the 4 Island Lake communities: Garden Hill First Nation, St. Louis First Nation, Wazugamak First Nation, and Red Sucker Lake First Nation. I would like to acknowledge all the dignitaries that are here, all the Grand Chiefs, elders, and ministers. When we talk about truth and reconciliation, there's so many things that we need to discuss and that we still need to talk about. When I first started this position, one of my important things that I talked about was having a voice. And I still see all of our communities still struggling to hear their voices heard. And to us, words are very important. And when I think about words, how important they are, having the voice to be heard, and also people listening. And the truth and reconciliation, the work that has been done. And when we talk about how important our words are, you see in our culture that these words, stories that have been passed down many generations. And I value words so much when I hear elders speak and I listen. And that's how these stories, important words that are passed down. And also hearing the stories, from our ancestors. And having our voices heard. And especially when we talk about the survivors and people that children that haven't come home, their voices need to be heard as well, and their voices are just as important. And I'm very glad that the work that they're doing, having their voices heard, because their voices need to be heard. Their voices, and I imagine, what would they say? I was here, I existed, I was loved. And those voices need to be out. And again, I would like to thank all the work that has been done, to make sure that these voices are heard, preserved, and to be listened to. And again, there's so much work that still needs to be done, and we continue to work hard to make sure that their voices are heard. Again, thank you. God bless.
Well, thank you very much for those kind words, Grand Chief. Let me just, before I ask the Minister to come, then I'd like to personally acknowledge, Eileen Clark, for all the work that you've done for us over the years, and also the appreciation, acknowledgement of the elders that we work together. So thank you very much, for your work. Minister, I'd like to get the Minister to come up here now and join us for signing ceremony. Minister.
Thank you, and I would ask Stephanie Scott from the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation to join me. Very grateful for the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation, so many of their staff that have joined us today, and for their valuable work. Thank you very much. Thank you. That concludes the formal part of this ceremony. I think we're going to open it up to media questions for a bit. And then for everyone else who's here, I think there is